Hello, everyone. There's a scripture that almost perfectly fits the organization, and that is Matthew chapter 28 and verse 23. And I'm going to read that real quick before my tablet runs out of batteries here. Matthew chapter 23 and verse 28. Comment down below. Tell me if this is not perfectly describing the organization. New International Version reads, "In the same way, on the outside, you appear to people as righteous. But on the inside, you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness." Now, on the outside, to people that you talk to, people that aren't witnesses at all. You talk to them, and a lot of them are going to say good things because they don't know anything other than they may know someone that is a co-worker, and that seems to be a nice person. Or they may have a family member that's a witness, and if that family member speaks to them, well, they're a nice person. But every religion has got nice people in it. This perfectly reflects the organization because you have so much hypocrisy. The organization almost makes churches look good. Now, I know a lot of people that leave the organization no longer want anything to do with religion, period. But that kind of illustrates my point. Someone getting upset at the Baptist church may just go to a different Baptist church, or they may go to a Pentecostal church or some other church. The organization is so bad that people leave the organization and don't want anything to do with any other church. Many people do. Not everyone, but many people do. The hypocrisy is so bad. I remember hearing about how haughty members of churches were because they had titles, reverend, bishop, pastor, all kinds of different titles that they have. Some have the title apostle even. But you have to understand that the organization does the exact same thing, except for it's almost not a church. It's almost more a business. So you're going to have the same issues, but they're handling it in a business way, whereas a church is handling it in a church type way. I'll give you an example. Someone that has a problem with drinking. Well, they in a church, they may have that person come forward. They may pray over that person in front of everyone. They may offer counseling sessions. They may tell that person to go to an AA class. That's more of a church type of a thing to do, trying to help people, trying to build them up, trying to encourage them, trying to help them get past whatever vice that they're battling. The organization, however, would handle it more like a business and just get rid of them. Is that not the case? A person struggling with fornication in a church, let's say if that person was a pastor or had a position in that church, well, they may have to step down from that position, but then the people there will probably pray over them. They'll probably get phone calls trying to encourage them, trying to help them. They'll probably have a lot of people praying for them. I've heard that people in churches will call each other on the phone, have like a conference call on the phone where they all have prayer together. Now, this is not what's going to happen in the Kingdom Hall. It's more going to be handled more like a business. If there's someone there making the business look bad, they're going to get rid of them. Shun them, disfellowship them, get them out. Let's look at some of the titles, for example. You think that a title like pastor, bishop, apostle, reverend, any other title like that, well, we don't have titles like that, which makes us better. Well, no. You also have those same titles, except for it's more in a business sense. You have, of course, you have your elders, you have your ministerial servants, but then you have your circuit overseer. Now, you go to a business and say that someone is a circuit overseer, they'll probably understand that from a business sense. They oversee a circuit. District overseer. It's a title, and it's the same as if they were in a church. They'd be calling themselves bishops. But since it's a business, they get a business title. And that title would be district overseer. Zone overseer. And then at Bethel, you have people who are your average Bethelites, but there's different levels at Bethel. Now, from the congregation standpoint, anyone going to Bethel, that's good. As a matter of fact, a Bethelite going back to his home congregation is going to be treated just as well as anyone else, because that congregation, the people there, as far as they know, he's a Bethelite, and that's about as good as it gets title-wise. But they don't understand that at Bethel there are different levels. At Bethel, you have your new boys, and don't ask me why they call them this, but you have your new boys, the people that walk around holding the big yellow envelope there with all the information in it, and their schedule and little maps to try to help them figure where everything is. Then you have, the level where they're regular Bethelites. That's after you have passed your evaluation and everything. Then you're a regular Bethelite, and that puts you above the other new boys, and it puts you above people who are there for a short period of time, people that are literally, volunteering for maybe a few months or so. They call them Bethelites, but they're not regular Bethelites. So once you've passed your evaluation, then you're considered a regular Bethelite. Before you pass your evaluation, you can be kicked out for anything. Now, you could technically be kicked out for anything anyway, but that's the concept. After that, then you have generally, they get reappointed. So you'll be a ministerial servant or what have you. And at Bethel, I guess that could be a little bit higher. A ministerial servant at Bethel is higher than a ministerial servant in your average congregation. Some servants don't give talks and things like that. Every Bethelite in my congregation that was a servant would be able to give talks and everything. Then you have, let's say, your assistant overseers. That would be a Bethelite that could be a ministerial servant, doesn't necessarily have to be an elder, but he is below a crew overseer. He's an assistant. If the crew overseer is on vacation, he's in charge of the crew. If the crew overseer leaves, then he's in charge of the crew. Normally, the assistant is next in line to be overseer, crew overseer, not department, but crew overseer of whatever area that is. Then you have a crew overseer. And a lot of the crew overseers that I was around were elders. And they would have a crew, I don't know, let's say they'd be over 10 guys or so. And keep in mind that these titles carry weight at Bethel. When you're talking at the table at lunch and people are asking, where do you work? Oh, I'm overseer of such and such. Oh, I'm assistant over such and such. They're going to mention these things because there's a reason why they mention these things. Because there's clout that comes with these titles. I guarantee they go back to their congregation. Their congregation may not care about assistants and overseers and regular, with the different levels of Bethel. They just know they're a Bethelite. But when they go back to their congregation, I guarantee you, they're going to tell you if they're an assistant, if they're an overseer. They're going to let you know those things. Now, also you have you have your elders, so you're assigned a congregation, and a Bethelite may be appointed as an elder at that congregation. But you also have Bethel elders. These aren't just regular elders. As a matter of fact, somebody at Bethel said it that way. They said, I'm a Bethel elder. I'm not just a regular elder. So at Bethel, you have people that kind of look down on the position of elder. So you're starting to get the gist of what I'm saying. There's still the titles. There's still the clout that comes with the titles, but it's a different title because it's like a business. The organization in the kingdom, they're like businesses, not churches. They don't handle things the same as churches, but it's very similar. Almost anything that the organization points at a church and says, see, look what they do, the organization does the same thing, but in a different way. So then you have your department overseer. The department overseer would be over the crew overseers and their assistants. And these are the types of people. There's the different levels that I'm describing at Bethel. And I'm going to mention a little bit more about the different experience that those Bethelites would have. So your regular Bethelite, your average Bethelite is going to go to morning worship. They're going to go to their assignment. They're going to go to their congregation, come back and repeat the process. Some of the higher tier Bethelites, those are the ones, and not just anybody giving talks at the district assembly. The higher tier Bethelites, those are the ones, when you go to your district assembly, they're going to say, we have brother such and such from Walk Hill, Bethel. Not just any Bethelite. That's one of those higher tier Bethelites that give talks at district assemblies. They give talks at dedications. They give the talks on Saturday at your congregation, and then also one on Sunday. They travel all over the place giving these talks. There's a big difference. A big difference. You think everybody, according to Matthew, is just a brother. Scripture in Matthew, I believe it's Matthew 28, chapter 28, verse 8. I could be wrong there, but I think it's Matthew chapter 28, verse 8, where it's saying that one is the teacher, that is Jesus, and everyone else, they're all brothers. No, it's not that way. At Bethel, you have your Bethelites that just work, and then you got your people that are higher, that get traveled all over the place giving talks and everything else. And they collect quite a bit of money. I've seen Bethelites that go somewhere to give a talk, travel somewhere, and people write them checks. They write them checks and hand it to them. Now, if this happened at a church, a pastor went somewhere, traveled somewhere to give a sermon at a church, and some of the members in that congregation started writing him a check, that would be in the watchtower now, wouldn't it? Yeah, it would. It would be in the watchtower. Look at this pastor, greedy for money. But when a Bethelite goes traveling around or what have you, and everyone's writing them checks, well, that's okay. See, it's the same thing going on, except for there's a different spin to it. So, churches, you have your reverends, your deacons, your bishops, your elders, all of this. And there may or may not, depending on the church, have whatever clout that goes along with that. But in the organization, it's the same thing. Everyone isn't the exact same. You got your servants, your elders, your Bethelites, your circuit overseers, your district overseers, your different tier Bethelites, and then all the clout that goes in along with that. It's the same thing. It's hypocrisy to speak as if you're better than churches when you have the same things and you have the same problems, but you handle those problems differently. You have churches, people may or may not celebrate a holiday because witnesses don't celebrate holidays. They don't have the option. Now, that does not make them any better than anyone else. A person in a church, if they decide, if a person in a Baptist church says, I'm not celebrating Christmas, I'm not celebrating Halloween, I'm not celebrating any of those things because they're secular and they have nothing to do with anything in my faith, are they going to get excommunicated for that? Are they going to get punished in any way, shape, or form for that? No. So no, these people don't have to celebrate anything. And if they choose to, then it's their choice to do so. The organization, the witnesses, they don't have a choice. It's not that they just don't. It's that they don't have a choice. If they were to celebrate anything, they are put out or disfellowshipped or what have you. So the more you talk about it, the more a church sounds better than a Kingdom Hall, the organization. For the longest time, it's been about donations and passing of a plate. Oh, well, at church, they pass this plate around. See, and then that's why we're better than them, because we have a box here and we don't pass that box around. Well, you have basically the same thing in that broadcasts. I've seen a broadcast where a governing body member basically was stating that, well, Jehovah knows if you're giving or not. It's the same thing where the pastor gets up and says, will a man rob God? Yes, indeed, he will. Bring in the 10th parts and or whatever he says before they start passing the plate. Well, the organization will have a district assembly with lots and lots of people and start talking about a deficit. That they need money to cover this deficit. It's the same thing except for at church, they're not standing there saying that they have a deficit. It's the same thing. And then also you have the broadcast where they will get on and say, well, Jehovah knows what you're giving and what you're not giving. Just guilting people into giving more, just like the churches do when they pass the plate a second time. So there really is no difference other than, the witnesses point at churches and say, well, if there's someone in that church, and number one, they're judging when they do this. They point people out in that church and they say, well, look at this person and that person, and why does that church allow them to do this? First of all, I don't think the church is allowing them to do it because the church shouldn't have authority over a person to separate them from their family because they're struggling with something. It shouldn't be a matter of allowing or disallowing. How are they helping that person? They don't talk about that in the Watchtower. They don't talk about churches and what they do to help people get over whatever it is that they struggle with. They don't mention that. They just simply state, well, what we do is we just get rid of them. We disfellowship them, and I've talked to several people, and this whole concept of, well, they disfellowship them and then they go and visit them regularly to encourage them and all that is false. From everyone I've talked to, is false. No, they get rid of them, and they may or may not come visit them after that. Who knows? They're not really following through with those people, from what I've been told. So from almost every aspect that you look at, a church sounds better than the congregation. Is definitely less boring. The kingdom melodies, compare that to a choir. Choir blows that out of the water. The skill and level of preaching that you'll get at a church oftentimes in comparison to a kingdom hall, that's going to blow the kingdom hall out of the water. A church looks better than a kingdom. If you go to a kingdom hall, after a while, a church should feel good to you. I get to sit down and listen to the encouragement, and whether or not I act on this is up to me. There's no one over my shoulder trying to force me to do it with the threat of separating me from my family. That sounds more like Christianity, gently nudging people in the right direction, not beating them into the direction that you want them to go. So comment down below. Let me know what you think about the scripture. Is that fitting for the organization? Did you know that there were different tiers of Bethelites? Or did you think that all Bethelites were just, Bethelites? And also, what do you think about the organization making church look good? Like, if you spent time in the organization and you believe in God, if you still believe in God when you leave, well, they make church look fun in comparison to what you had just unfortunately experienced. Also, too, yes, you have churches that pass the plate, and people can or whatever, they can put money in, or if they choose not to, they don't. But the organization, they require a set amount of time from every member. It may not be necessarily monetary, but it ends up being the same thing, because the cost and everything that is involved with going out and preaching and fulfilling those 10 hours or whatever the requirement is for every member for every month costs money. So those witnesses that think, well, they're not passing a plate and I'm not having to put money in the plate, they are required just the same to give of their resources every month. It's not just a plate in front of them. It's a required set you have to do this every month or you're in bad standing. Again, it's the same thing, except for one is a church and one is a business, and the way a business would do it. So just because they do things differently doesn't mean that they're better than someone else. Just because they do things in a business manner in a church, well, they do things, you know, in a way a church would do it. That doesn't mean that the organization is doing it better. So comment down below. Let me know what you think. Contact me. My email is bethelite7@yahoo.com. My number is 937-607-5085. This is X Walkhill Bethelite signing out.